Okay, what's going on, y'all? You're back. You're listening to Occupy the Media. I'm your host again, Paco. Just want to let you know we are running a promotion this month called Inflate This. For every donation of $20 or more, we will send donors their very own Ron Paul blimp from our sponsors at ronpaulblimps.com. So donate to Ron Paul Radio at ronpaulradio.com/support, and then head over to ronpaulblimps.com to get your own promotional blimps to fly the message of liberty in your town. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump into our interview. We have on the line Amir. Amir, you with me?
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me, man?
Yeah, man, you coming in clear. Everything's good. Same thing on my end?
Cool, perfect. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, well, just to let our listeners know, Amir, we have on the line, is an Iranian American. He's actually also helping out with LA Liberty headquarters. And I wanted to get him on today so we can kind of talk about, Iran and about the country of Iran, and also about our government, hyping up the terrorists, so-called, from Iran, and about bombing them. So we're just going to go get into that. And so, Amir, I wanted to ask you first, or discuss first with you, kind of about the people of Iran, like the culture, everybody thinking that we should be scared. Why should we treat Iranians just the same as anybody else?
Right, well, I mean, first of all, the Iranian people are a sovereign people, and, they're just like anybody else. People in America are assuming that these people are completely oppressed, that, they live in a desert or something, and that Iran is similar to Iraq, for example, which it isn't at all. And, people are getting this common misconception, and all they have to do really is look into Iran just a little, look into the history of Iran, and, they're estimated to be about 1 million Iranian Americans here, so, we're everywhere. So, if you can just get in touch with the Iranian American and learn a bit about the culture, you'll see that we're just as similar as everybody else. Yeah.
Now, what about the freedoms that over there in that country? Now, if you listen to the media, like you said, you would think you're in a third world nation where everybody's chained up or something, or there's dictators everywhere. Are there freedoms in Iran? Are they really strict over there? Like, in regards to that, how is it over there?
Right. Well, I mean, I would have to say that it is pretty strict there. They have a pretty complex system of government that a lot of people don't really understand. I could go through that real quick. In Iran, the Americans usually think that Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, has all this power to do whatever he wants, say whatever he wants, but in reality, the elected officials, including the president and members of parliament, they don't really hold as much authority as the supervisory bodies, which include the Expediency Council, the Council of Guardians, and the Assembly of Experts, which is they're appointed by the Supreme Leader. And the Supreme Leader and his guys are the people that are wielding a lot of power. And right now in Iran, there's a power struggle between Ahmadinejad's camp and the Grand Ayatollah. So, in Iran, I'd say people are definitely less free than they are here because, for example, it is law for women to wear headscarves. Obviously we don't have those kinds of laws here, but, anything that our government says that Iran is guilty for in regards to human rights, I'm sure America is also guilty of it as well.
So what about the so-called getting slashes and getting whipped and hanging people in public and things like that? Talk
right,
about
yeah,
that.
And that is an absolute reality there. I mean, it's pretty similar in a lot of Middle Eastern countries there. I mean, Iran is a country run by religion, and as we've seen, throughout history, governments that are run through religion don't really work because when they take their own interpretation of the religion and they spread it to the people, there are public executions in Iran. If you're gay in Iran, for example, and you get caught, you'll get executed. They'll hang you in the middle of the street.
If you're what? You said if you're gay?
If you're gay, yeah. If you're gay, for example. And, if you're protesting against the government, I know a lot of people myself who have, gone to the worst prisons in Iran and have been tortured for their political beliefs. People who were, part of the Green movement right after the elections a few years ago that almost led to a revolution in the country. So, the conditions there are definitely not like they are here, but at the same time, you don't have to be scared to walk in the streets in Iran. I've been there multiple times, and, at the end of the day, it's not some kind of police state where there are, police on every street corner in every city in the country telling you how to live your life, Mm-hmm. When I traveled to the outskirts, my mom's side of the family is actually from Natanz, which is where one of the nuclear power plants are. I've seen it with my own eyes, and the people there, it's just a small community. They self-govern themselves for the most part. They have very localized government, and it seems as if the federal government really stays out of their business, which I kind of find cool. So yeah.
Well, do you think that most Iranians agree with the way that they do their, I guess, discipline or justice, if you want to call it? Like, do they agree with the public? Right. Do they don't agree with the public hangings and the slash whippings and stuff like that?
Absolutely not. I mean, like I said earlier, any country that's run by religious hardliners isn't going to work out. So, I mean, if these people want to come out and say anything, they'll be taken to jail. So many people have been taken to jail as due to the Green movement and all of this thing going on through there, which is why it's kind of been silenced too. And another thing is, what people don't realize is that when you have some of the most powerful countries in the world threatening Iran, or threatening any country, when somebody threatens you, the people of the country tend to come together more and unite. So
yeah.
If anything is happening right now, it's that the Iranian people are uniting behind their government because they have outside forces trying to come. For example, when 9/11 happened, we all united and backed up our government. I mean, most of us did.
That's true. Well,
so
people understand though is, if we go, even if it's, bad like you're saying it is with the government, or it's not as free as over here, people got to understand is, if America was to go over there and take over, America ain't going to treat them like they do in America. They're going to treat them 10 times worse than their own government did. So it doesn't benefit us to go and try to bomb another country or take over another country, because we're just going to make it worse for them. But definitely, to all my brothers and sisters out there in Iran, I definitely hope they get their freedom too. We're definitely all in this together.
Absolutely.
No matter what continent you on, what country you on, everyone deserves to have a constitution and a right. Unfortunately, everybody has to fight. We all can't fight everybody's battles, unfortunately, but we all in this. What do you think is the view on most Iranians' minds towards Americans?
Iranians are, I might be a little biased in saying this, but I think Iranians are some of the smartest and brightest people in the world. They see past what is told to them. And, they understand that the battle between America and Iran is just a battle of governments. There's this new campaign that came out between Israelis and Iranians, and, they have a picture of an Israeli, and it says, "I'm Israeli and I love, Iranians," and then the Iranian will take a picture and say, "I'm Iranian, I love Israelis," just to show that this isn't a battle between the people at all. This is just a battle between the elites, and they're trying to take, exactly, just like every other battle, and they're trying to take a hit to it.
Hold on, Amir. We're about to go to a break, and we'll be back, okay?
Cool, perfect.
All right.
You are now listening to the Ron Paul Radio Network. Radio for the revolution.
What's going on, y'all? You're listening to Occupy the Media. We're in our final segment here. Just want to let you know, if you haven't, join me on Facebook. You can find me, Paco Elijah. Also, LA Liberty HQ. That's LA Liberty HQ. And if you haven't already, watch The Vote 2012. Again, watch The Vote 2012. Okay, we got my guest, Amir, on the line. You still there, Amir?
Yeah, and RonPaulLosAngeles.com, too.
Oh, there you go, Ron Paul, Los Angeles.
You guys are in the LA area.
That's where the events are, right? Keeping updated with the events?
Right, yeah, and there's also on LALibertyHQ.org, you can also find some information, too.
All right, cool. So we were talking about, I'll let you finish up what you were saying about how they view Americans.
Right, yeah. So it's pretty much really in a positive light. I mean, whenever I remember last time I was there, I would, if it was a government official or something, I wouldn't be too quick to say, hey, I'm American, but I mean, anybody who found out that you're American loves it, You tell them you're from California, you tell anybody in the world you're from California, and, they'll love it. They'll love to hear it, So,
yeah.
They don't hate us because we're American, and they don't hate us because we're free, The thing they don't like is that we've been interfering in their government for the last almost century, either us or Britain. And what Americans also don't realize is that the reason that there's the government that there is today is because of what Ron Paul always talks about, and blowback. And, the one thing that really caught me with Ron Paul was when he talked about the blowback in Iran, where, it was the first CIA secret operation, and, we went in, we overthrew a democratically elected prime minister in 1953, Mohammad Mossadegh. We installed a dictator, a king, and the Shah of Iran for the next few decades wasn't too nice to his people. I mean, one of the reasons that my dad came to America in the first place wasn't because of the new government of Iran, it was because of the old one, because the Shah's government, who was completely backed by America, was still extremely oppressive to the people of Iran. Just because they were a little more free and modernized and westernized doesn't mean that there wasn't still a dictator running the country. So.
Yeah, and we're supposed to expect them to love us for that. Oh, what happened? We just took your elected government and put in what we wanted. Aren't you supposed to be happy now?
Yeah, and that's the Persian people have had a long history of freedom, So
well, if you look at the news from America's point of view, it's almost like not if we're going to bomb Iran, but more about when we're going to bomb Iran. What would you say is kind of the prediction on the minds of Iranians? Like, do they think that an attack is definitely coming, or do they think it's just hype, they ain't going to really bomb us? Or what do you think, or have you talked to anybody? What's their thoughts along that?
Yeah, I was actually just reading this article about you might think we're still, in this big battle with Iran if you're listening to the Western media, This whole thing that's been happening with Iran has literally been happening since, after 9/11 came out and Bush started the axis of evil with North Korea and Iran, and he put them all in there. This has been going on for 10 years now, the threats to Iran. So I think the Iranian people kind of realize, like, at the end of the day, this is just talk, and it's been talk for a really long time. And, if anything's going to happen, then, it probably should have happened already. This war hype with Iran just goes up and down every few years. The mainstream media will come out every few years, try to tell us that Iran's bad and bad. It's always about the nuclear program, and always about how Iran's going to build a nuke in the next year, and then a year happens, and then Iran still doesn't have a nuclear weapon, and then, it's just vice versa. The same thing just keeps happening over and over.
Now, the people of Iran, and to my knowledge, the nuclear energy is just for energy, and to my knowledge, the people of Iran are in favor of that. They want their government to continue to get nuclear energy, right?
Yeah, they do, and it's because then they don't have to be dependent on their oil.
Exactly.
So they could have alternative sources of energy. what is wrong with that? I mean, personally, I don't agree with nuclear power that much. I think it's pretty unsafe if we look at what happened in Fukushima, but, if it benefits your society and if it can help you, then go ahead, I'm not going to tell you not to do it.
Well, our government's trying to say they're trying to use it for weapon purposes, and they're trying to say they're using it for energy purposes. But yeah, whether, like Ron Paul says, if we can just get to a free market, I'm talking about the U.S. I mean, obviously, I would love for there to be a free market in Iran too, but if there was a free market, then those energy sources that are safer would be more appealing, and they would come out, instead of the government trying to back, certain energy corporations or energies and push that. If we could just have the free market, and then people will come to see and come to realize what is the safest choice, what is the best choice that's for us. And if something like that could happen in Iran, that would be great. But in the meantime, our government is trying to say, everything is for weapon purposes. Everything is about blowing up. And I look at it like Iran is committing suicide if they even aim at us. If they even talk crazy to us. So like Ron Paul says, they would be crazy. They don't want to commit suicide. So I just think, like you said, a lot of this is hype. All this is talk. It's just been going on. The Iranian people want to be free and prosperous just like we do. Now, we all saw that revolution taking place, or a close revolution taking place. If you've been keeping up with some of the people over there, what's going on now? What are their efforts, or what are the people doing now to try to maybe get that fire going again, or get that revolution coming back?
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, it's really hard for, a revolutionary movement and a true movement of change to happen when you have these outside forces constantly threatening you. Because, for example, a good example I like to bring up is the Iran-Iraq War. 1 million Iranians gave their lives to, and nobody really won that war. But at the same time, Iraq had the backing of almost every superpower on earth, whereas Iran was almost alone, except when America decided to give them money and then give Iraq money and then give them money instead. But, that's just some shady stuff that our government does. Pretty typical. But, I mean, if the Shah's son actually came out yesterday, I think, and he went on Israeli TV, and he was saying, he's like, you guys would be crazy if you guys went and just started dropping bombs on Iran. That's not gonna help anything. What you guys need to start doing is help the opposition. But there is no opposition when they're constantly being threatened by war. And another thing is, they don't have any help at all. When the big protests were happening after the last presidential elections in Iran, what did our government do? We said, we stand with the people of Iran, blah, 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 Obama just talking some more, and then we didn't do anything. If we're going to intervene and do something, like, we should, I think we should stay out of everything, and I don't think we should, ever be saying anything about anybody, but, I mean, if we're going to go help somebody and then not help other people, we're hypocrites, If we're going to go on Al-Qaeda in Syria, but we're not going to go help, the people on the streets in Iran, then, it's hypocritical. It's a hypocritical policy that we've had. And, what people don't realize is the Arab Spring started in Iran. It just never finished in Iran yet. So.
Yeah, remember, everything is yet. Everything, because there will be a revolution in every country, I believe.
There will be.
There's a blowback, man. The internet's blowback, and they've allowed too many of us to come together, to organize, and all that. So we are coming up to the end of the show, though. I think we got about less than a minute left before the music's going to cut back on. So, that was great, Amir. I appreciate you being on and letting us know. Again, and you guys can reach Amir on Facebook. His last name, how do you say your last name? I want to make sure I say it right.
Zendehnam. You could check out my Twitter. It's Amir is my first name, and then Zendehnam. You can follow me there on Twitter.
And you're also really active with LA Liberty headquarters, so you guys can also.
If anybody's in the LA or Southern California area and they want to help out with the Ron Paul campaign, we have a grassroots headquarters in Venice. We do a lot of the work for the campaign in primarily Los Angeles and Southern California as well. So if anybody wants to get involved, check out LALibertyHQ.org and RonPaulLosAngeles.com, and they can get all the information there. We need as many volunteers as we can to get Ron Paul to win California.
That's right. Well, Amir, you keep me posted what's going on, and, we'll talk. We're always on Facebook and stuff, so